All right, Bournemouth away for Manchester United is the next task on the agenda for Ten Hag's Red Devils, and there's a lot of implication to this game, as there's perhaps quite a bit riding on it. I think is the case with pretty much every game in the Premier League, but also in the FA Cup, because of course Coventry in the semi-finals is just around the corner. So that's something for United fans to look forward to as well. But we've got Bournemouth away in the Premier League, and some sour, forget sour grapes here, some sour cherries that we feasted on the last time, and yeah, it didn't go so well for us. That was at Old Trafford, so we're going to the Vitality Stadium. I believe it's still called the Vitality Stadium, and we've got a tall task, tough Bournemouth team, a Bournemouth team that, to be honest, I've never really quite grasped the idea that Bournemouth would be actually this fairly decent footballing side. But I tell you what, since Gary O'Neill had his tenure at the club, they've actually been quite respectable. You know, genuinely a respectable team that takes the Premier League. You know, competing against other teams in the Premier League at least fairly serious. I know that it's a bit hard for them to go after all the grandest honours, such as qualifying for Europe and winning Premier League titles per se, but not completely impossible. But you know, it's just see what happens with Bournemouth over the coming years. Be strange having Bournemouth be up there as title contenders with that small ground. I'll tell you that now. But anyways, Bournemouth respectable footballing side, and we've got our work cut out for us. Quite a few key injuries or missing players that we're going to go into this weekend with, as the game is 5:30 kickoff tomorrow. I'm kind of glad it's not one of those like like crazy what was it, quarter past or 10 past 8 kickoffs in the evenings. I'm glad that it is just football sort of ends on on Saturday at about 5:30 is the final kickoff, and you get to enjoy some wind down time at the end of your Saturday. So, well, a little bit of that to look forward to. I'm going to be working for the earlier part of the afternoon. Hopefully, I should be back home in time to catching the kickoff for that, so I can pay close attention to what goes on. Hopefully, I'm not wasting my time. And watching us getting another beatdown, because 3-0 last time out at Old Trafford is not a result to remember fondly, but rather you should be a motivation. It should be a motivator to say, well, you know what that Bournemouth team's all about. You go to their ground away, you've got a tall task to do, and it's up to you to not make it 6 points out of 6 for Bournemouth against Manchester United. You've got to get these 3 points, and 3 points is the only thing that us as a fan base will accept. There's only 3 points. There's only 3 points to be had, and if you don't get them, there's no excuses for it. There really, really is no excuses for it, and I suppose there'll be some people that might make excuses per se. Oh, look at the injuries, look at the defensive backline. I think it's 6 senior defenders we are missing. We can still field out a backline. Can do a fairly good job. I think maybe rough around the edges at times, but I think I think they can do a fairly good job. Which is surprising because Maguire is actually included in that defence. But I think Maguire, without that captaincy, has had a little bit of a different edge to him. He's not like he's walking around as Calamity James with the spotlight on him. He's just trying to go about doing his business. But Harry Maguire is not that sort of top level centre back that's going to aid in your defence being a title-winning defence. He's more sort of a player that's there to bridge the gap, until your senior players get back. And personally, yeah, he definitely doesn't displace Martinez or Varane out of that team. So it's it is what it is with that. But for me, Maguire still to me is not good enough to be a part of this team. So for me, it's just a case that get to the summer and sell him. But I don't know if that's going to happen. But we live in hope. But as for the rest of the team, I think with Onana in goal, obviously, it's the only thing we can expect nowadays. I think, again, the fullbacks of Delo at left back and Wan-Bissaka at right back, I think it was actually switched around. Wan-Bissaka played more on the left side against Liverpool than he did on the right. So that was interesting to see. Whether they do the same thing again or whether they switch back over to the more natural sides, I have no idea. But I think it's one of those where that might be what Ten Hag tries to do with his fullbacks, where he tries to get them bedded in on both sides, and so it doesn't really matter who works well on which side. It's just both of those players can play, kind of like how modern systems like to get your wingers interchanging, so you can do well on the right side as well as the left side. And if you play on the left side, usually you can do as well on the right side, and I suppose it's a trait of the modern game, that you've got all of these players that are essentially captured as your jack of all trades, master of none. Whilst there are some positives to it, I think there's a lot of distinguished negatives about having a huge amount of players that are like that. But I think in the short term, I think having just players that can at least fill out a role when we are short in the department, and I think we are very, very short in the defensive department. So having a Wan-Bissaka and Delo that can play either lefts or right backs, regardless of what their preferences are, I think is a small positive, hand over negative. So yeah, I think that's in terms of fullback selections, it's going to be the same story. The centre backs, as I've already alluded to with Maguire, is probably is guaranteed to start. He's pretty the only senior centre back that's actually fit and available. Johnny Evans, I think, was ruled out, so it won't be him in the team. Lindelof is out, Martinez, and I think Varane is out as well. Let me just confirm that. So yeah, Varane definitely out, and of course Martinez out as well. Pretty much the rest of the season. So Willy Camboila, Free Willy is, and I think there's been positives and negatives, but I think given the age profile of Willy Camboila, he's still fresh young blood trying to bed himself in, and I think one of the better ways is if you've got a setup surrounded by senior elements in a team, that bedding in younger talent and sort of threading them in and giving them these constant opportunities. I know we're kind of, it's a bit hard for us to not give them the opportunities, but I mean, then again, you could end up playing Casemiro or Sofiane Amrabat at the centre back, and I don't think fans are going to be all too thrilled with that. But Willy Camboila, for a young centre back, getting his opportunities to get his teeth sunk into first team football should be something that we can admire. I think it's something that we can admire. I think it's sort of like that glimmer of hope for various elements of this team moving forwards, and seeing younger players getting the chances and getting the experience in early, and working towards having more of an impact in the being a more mainstay first team player, and potentially surviving into future managerial projects should the current manager be removed. And new manager comes in and they still get picked. That they also back those players the same way as Ten Hag would have done. So I think seeing youth presence in the first team, especially given the circumstances that we've seen so many of the first team players not really giving what they should be giving for the first team picture. It's like where the senior team, they're used to giving a mile, but now they've resorted to giving an inch, whereas the youth team take precedent on that and they say, well, we'll give a mile. And I think I think there's certain aspects of youth injection into this first team that sort of kept this this structure afloat just about, literally barely. So I think, of course, more to it continuing there, and hopefully we see a good performance from Cambola. In terms of players in front of him, I think obviously Kobbie Mainoo Casemiro is the go-to partnership there. We can't talk about Scott McTominay, top scorer, McMayonnaise, Milky Bar Kid. We can't talk about him at the moment. He's out. He's out with an injury himself. So all of you Scott McTominay apologists, suck on them apples. Suck on them. But either way, it's a shame we don't have a vivid goal threat from the bench to come on in the latter stages of the game and get the extra man in the box and scoring goals for us. I guess it's just going to have to fall back to the shoulders of Rasmus Højlund. So, but for me, again, Mainoo Casemiro. I know Casemiro has been, he's more or less become the centre of conversation again, that he as an individual in his performances have seriously diminished. And I think that there is probably various truths to that statement. I do. I think that there is been a drop in level from Casemiro. I think it would be unwise to ignore that. I think with Casemiro, you look at him from a standpoint of experience and say, well, you yourself are used to being a champion, not just a champion, occasionally here or there. We're talking literally every single season you are winning trophies, and not just any other little trophies, you are winning the biggest ones. But that your levels dropped. And I don't know if per se it's related to just in terms of losing touch with his ability, but rather I think perhaps a mental aspect of the role he's playing in this team, that maybe he's mentally checked out a little bit. And I don't know about you guys, but it could be that Casemiro becomes more prone to potentially seeing himself sold in the summer if dropped levels of performances continue to be the trend. And I personally hope that isn't the case. We do keep a hold of him for another season, because I think he could still have quite a big influential part to play, especially going in through next season. But I'm not the board, I'm not Ineos, I'm not Sir Jim Ratcliffe, I'm not Jason Wilcox, and I'm not Omar Barada, or even Dan Ashworth for that matter. I'm just a fan. My personal feelings is I think Casemiro, given a relatively fresh team around him, might be more mentally switched on, and we will see a much better Casemiro in those regards. I mean, for Varane, I know he's come from a similar background, but for me, Varane's just more feeding off of instinct, and as a centre back, your game is different as a centre back versus a defensive midfielder. A lot more of what you do as a centre back is what you're mentally thinking about yourself and what's second nature to you. I think with Casemiro, swings and roundabouts when you're a midfielder, because there's so many different things or different parts of your game that you've got to keep up to scratch. And you need strong willpower, very strong willpower for that. For players in front, obviously Bruno's guaranteed to play, given captaincy and all. Good goal, very good goal against Liverpool. Don't dispute that for a second, but doesn't wipe away the past, pretty much whole season that he's had. So again, another player that I think we're going to have to keep a close eye on, him and Casemiro in midfield. Um, Players on the left now. Rashford is a question mark over fitness, whether he will be available. I think there's a probable case that he might be fit, but I'm going to plan this team based off of what to me is guaranteed, as opposed to what may be or what may not be. So for me on the left, no Rashford. On the left, I'm going with Garnacho. Down the right hand side, I think Antony's available again, so he probably starts. For me, I would like to see Amad Diallo, but I mean, it's a weird case with Diallo. Very, very weird case. It's like he's taken the role that Pellistri had, and ultimately Pellistri was then just shifted out of the club. So, yeah, I think it's just sort of like a hand-me-down role in the team. I don't think it's all that special, and it's a shame because I think Antony could have his work cut out for him if Amad Diallo is given a lot of opportunities to be a viable option for the starting position. But Antony claims that right-hand side spot, I think, for most people, solely based off of fitness availability as well. And of course, Rasmus Højlund up top. Now, I predicted originally that is going to be a 2-1 victory. And I think that's probably going to be the case with every sort of away result or away match that we have. I think I always feel like close, tense, uncomfortable, probably the most common terms I would use to describe watching Manchester United, just in general, but away from home more so than at home, because we usually have this case of riding off crowd momentum, and if there's not a crowd backing us, it's harder to come by confidence enough to get a result over the line. So for me, close plus, not only that, but it's a habit. We've seen it with Chelsea and Liverpool. It's a habit. You get into a good position and you switch off mentally. So I'm actually betting on this game keeping us on our toes at risk of losing it for longer than we spend the game actually winning it. So I think either probably losing or drawing for most of the game before then sort of grabbing that winner goal within the last 20 minutes or so, and trying desperately to see out the game. But hopefully Ten Hag doesn't make silly decisions that impact the management of the game and then costing us a result. But yeah, I mean, the last toughest game that we've really got in these results or these matches coming up with the fixtures. So, of course, I think next weekend, pretty sure it's next weekend, yeah, on the Sunday, we'll have Coventry at Wembley. The game after that is Sheffield United at home. The game after that is Burnley at home. The game after that is Crystal Palace away. And then we've got 3 tough fixtures to close out the season. We'll have Arsenal at home. I will have the rescheduled home fixture in the league against Newcastle, and then we'll have Brighton away after that. So the Newcastle game is set to be a midweek fixture, but there are a huge amount of winnable games, and by huge, it's only really like 4 or 5, but still 4 or 5 winnable games. So win all of them. That's the only thing I can say really off of that. So I hope that we do come around to getting the victory, because 3 points, we're desperate for those. Forget top 5. Aston Villa and Tottenham too far ahead. I said that it would do well to finish 6th and not incur a dramatic fall off or dramatic decline. I think as long as we can win all of these next 4 to 5 Premier League games, I think we should have more or less the 6th place or 6th position in the bag. But yeah, it just is what it is with that instance. Just a quick bit of news as well, just to sort of round things up here. Supposedly, according to Matt Lawton, that Sir Jim Ratcliffe held face-to-face talks with Newcastle co-owner Amanda Staveley, supposedly to try and sweet talk a deal or an agreement for Dan Ashworth to get an earlier release from Newcastle garden leave. And, you know, maybe those talks go down well. Maybe there's more scheduled in the near future. But I can imagine that as more time passes, I think the less Newcastle will probably sit there feeling like, yeah, no, we've definitely got to hold on to him. They'll probably be much more sound of mind to just say, all right, we get it. Take your leave. As long as you get a bit of compensation package for it, we can put that towards then a new director of football for Newcastle. And then everybody can be happy at the end of the day. And I suppose that's probably what the talks or the nature of those talks should be. But yeah, it's interesting. I've seen also as well talks about supposedly Ineos or United wanting Nagelsmann. Again, nobody actually really knows for certain what the long-term goal is for Ineos here. So I don't really know precisely which stories will have the most weight of truth to them. But I could probably say that right here, right now, everyone in Ineos is a bit more sort of chilled with trying to see out the rest of the season, and then making the big calls in the summer. As long as it isn't Southgate, then honestly, I really don't overly mind. You know, Southgate, Big Sam, hell, Jose Mourinho, whoever else, really. I mean, probably Graham Potter as well. I'm a bit apprehensive about De Zerbi links as well, but De Zerbi fits the picture for what Ineos will want for a manager. And I suppose with Nagelsmann as well, maybe from the setups that the Red Bull clubs had. I know with Bayern it's a little bit, you know, less constricted, but I think with the Red Bull club setups, the structures that they had was very much professional teams hands-on approach, whilst the coach just focuses on being a coach. Hell, maybe the managers or the coaches that we have would actually prefer that because it's less pressure, because it's just one thing they have to think about, and that's training a team, rather than wondering, how am I going to sell that player from my team? How am I going to sign that player from that team? They give the list of the types of players that they want, that sort of both tick everyone's boxes, and then the manager just focuses on training the players that are there. The board does the rest of the work to try and make ends meet for the manager. If it goes well, it goes very swimmingly well. If it doesn't, it can get very ugly very quickly. So I don't know how this model is going to work. Maybe it works a dream, but it could also work an absolute nightmare and then start provoking a lot of negative thought towards the Ineos project. And I think from those interior to the Ineos project as well, if it doesn't work, maybe maybe to be fair, Ineos would actually garner a change with their philosophy and how they approach things if it really doesn't go well at all. Because at the end of the day, it's all about results for them. It's not about going on a journey, you know, everyone's holding hands and singing and dancing. It needs to garner results. So if their fundamentals as to how they go about business relies on the end results being the best possible, then supposedly process this, process that. Maybe we do have to trust the process. maybe there is a process we have to trust, but I don't know. I don't know what the factual element is going to be. But hopefully you guys could give your insights in the comment section below. Don't forget almost. Don't forget to also hit the like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Eventually we'll get to 200, but it's a journey. It's a slow, steady journey, but I'm sure we'll get there. I'm sure we'll get there. Also, don't forget to leave your thoughts about this Bournemouth game tomorrow, as well as some match score predictions or match predictions and things that you think will happen in this game, or just your general feeling about United, but also maybe Bournemouth. Help yourselves to the comment spaces and let your brains speak your brains, and yeah, I'll be sure to read what you guys have to say. So yeah, big ups to everybody. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and hopefully we can enjoy a win and a positive match reaction tomorrow night. And then I've got the zoo on the Sunday as well, so it's going to be a bit of a mad weekend. Bit of a mad weekend. Work, football, and zoo visits. But hey, at least my baby nephew gets to see a real life elephant, his favourite animal. It's a real sized elephant for the first time in his life. So it's going to be some crazy reactions in that sense. Hopefully, my match reaction doesn't have to be as crazy as the reaction on my baby nephew's face when it comes to it. So it's going to be a lot of fun, people. A lot of fun over this weekend. And I hope everybody else also has plenty of fun as well. So take care, everybody. And we'll see you again tomorrow for match reaction. And then, of course, perhaps Sunday night takeaway show. I should be back home by that point. And but yeah, take care, goodbye, and enjoy the rest of your Friday nights. Take care, people.